Emily, do you want to take us away?
Yes, I'll start with the land acknowledgement. So we welcome you into the space of virtual gathering. We begin by acknowledging that Dominican University of California occupies the traditional lands of the Greater Rancheria and Coast Miwok nations. As California has always been the home to the largest number of indigenous peoples and their cultures amongst all states, we also recognize our neighboring indigenous peoples, primarily but not limited to the Patwin and the Wapo to the east, the Ohlone to the south, and the Pomo to the north. Our keynote speaker today is Dr. Marisol Morales, and she joins us from Puerto Rico. We want to acknowledge the Taino people that used to inhabit most of the Caribbeans. European colonization have made the Taino culture and language extinct, but the Taino blood and spirit still run deep amongst Puerto Rico's current population. We further acknowledge that Zoom, the platform used for this event, is headquartered in what is now called San Jose, California, on the traditional lands of the Ohlone, Tamien, and Muwokma peoples. We acknowledge the land Zoom resides on, as the digital platform is made possible because of physical land and the indigenous people who steward it. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. So I'm going to be quick, but I just want to say welcome everybody and say that while numbers alone aren't meaningful, what these numbers represent is really our shared commitment to both addressing the pressing issues that we always face and have been increasingly pressing over the last years, but also to envision and create a more equitable world. And we've been doing this with our students, our community partners, our community members. And that's why I chose the theme of radical imagination, because it really comes closest to expressing kind of what has been some essential learning about what is most needed and what we've experienced. And kind of I draw on the knowledge of people like the abolitionist Miriam Kaba, who asks, if something can't be fixed, what do we need to build instead? And she tells us that imagination is required because we need to invent new worlds and new ways of being with each other. We have to prefigure the world in which we want to live. And I was just at the Othering and Belonging Summit, and John Powell, the founder, talked about and asked the question if we can imagine new structures that honor our multiple fluid identities. I feel that over the past year, as a country, but here I'm speaking about specifically our program, we've viscerally felt this possibility to rebuild even in the midst of pain and struggle. We've continued to grow and evolve our commitment to equity and to showing up for the community, to valuing and centering the knowledge and voices of community members. And we've taken a lot of pivots, we've co-created programming and learned and evolved in service of a better world. So on that note, I'm very honored to introduce Dr. Marisol Morales, who has so generously agreed to speak to us from her vacation in her motherland of Puerto Rico. Marisol has served as the Vice President for Network Leadership for Campus Compact. For those of you who don't know, Campus Compact is a national coalition of colleges and universities committed to the public purpose of higher education. Their mission is we build democracy through civic education and community development. Dominican has been a member for the 17 years that I've been on the job. It was the first time I begged money was to, not the last, it was to join members of Campus Compact. And I don't know if Elaine is here, Elaine Akeda is our fantastic leader of our California state office. So in this role of VP since 2018, VP of Network Leadership, Dr. Morales provides guidance, inspiration, and practical support to network staff across the country, including us, and she's showing up today and really furthering the goals that we all share. So you see, she leads the efforts to increase inclusion, equity, and diversity internally, which is super important, and in higher education community engagement. She trains and presents regularly on issues related to higher education community engagement and equity. I'll just end by saying Dr. Morales was the founding director of the Office of Civic and Community Engagement at the University of Laverne for 5 years. And before that, she was the associate director of the Stern Center for Community-Based Service Learning and Community Service Studies at DePaul. She holds a BA in Latin American Latino Studies and an MS in International Public Service Management from DePaul. She earned her EDD recently. Congratulations, in organizational leadership at the University of Laverne. Her dissertation focused on the community engagement experience of Latinx students at a Hispanic serving institution, which is super cool. So thank you so much, Marisol. Take it away.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I see some familiar faces and some new friends. So thanks so much for the invitation. This is the only meeting I'm taking during my vacation, and it's because I met Julia many years ago when I was at the University of Laverne and got to know the work of Dominicans. So I'm so excited to be here and talk to you a little bit today. I have to say I really love the title of this time together that we have, because I'm actually reading the book, A Third University is Possible, and it focuses on that idea of radical imagination. And so kind of want to talk to you a little bit about the space that Campus Compact is imagining. Campus Compact has been around for about 36 years, and so we have been an organization that helps support the professionals at our member institutions who are doing this work on the ground. The faculty and the community engagement professionals who are working directly with students and community to make these relationships reciprocal, meaningful, and for the betterment of all. Really with this focus on what is the public purpose of higher education, what is our role in helping to build and sustain democracy, what is our role in helping to educate a diverse and engaged citizenry. And so with that, we, like any other institution, much like our higher ed institutions, have fallen also into the practices of white supremacy, have fallen into the practices of charity-minded engagement, have fallen into the practices of ways that don't always honor the different ways of knowing. But I want to say that I think probably before I got here, and Elaine's on the call, and I'm happy to see her, Campus Compact started thinking differently about what is our role, what is the university's role, particularly when it comes to engaging our communities. What is the university's role as we are working to support a more diverse student body, and how do we begin to embody that? So I want to talk a little bit about kind of what we're seeing currently nationally, the kinds of conversations that are happening, and the ways in which Campus Compact is beginning to sort of chart new pathways, engage in that radical imagination, to really think about how do we make a different university possible, right? How do we create spaces that truly work towards decolonization, that works towards creating spaces of inclusion, of full participation, and also ways that we can reimagine what our democracy looks like, because we know what has been revealed to us most recently in the racial justice movement, as well as with the pandemic, is that we are not all impacted and served by this democracy in the same way. And so how do we begin from this point to really reimagine what our nation can be and what our university spaces can be? So I came to university kind of working in higher education kind of haphazardly. I was a community partner for many years, with DePaul in Chicago, and I was hosting service learning students. But really my kind of crumbs trace back to when I was a student at DePaul and got reintroduced to my Puerto Rican community through an ethnic studies course that I took at DePaul. And it really transformed my education. This is why I both love this work of community engagement and also am deeply critical of it. Because I think without that kind of criticality, we really can't do that radical imagination. We really can't move towards continuous improvement and think about the ways in which we are doing things differently. And so sort of tracing back to my time as a student and then hosting students as a community partner, I was really able to engage in conversations with our university partners differently. What it meant for me as a community partner to host students, to make sure that the things that I wanted, that I needed as a community partner, those needs were met in my relationship with the university. And then moving to the university, how I work towards balancing that with the needs of like faculty, tenure and promotion, research, those sorts of things, the needs of community and the needs of students. And so I think that those of us who engage in this work, who are creating spaces for that coming together, we're deeply rooted in this idea of relationships. And so that's kind of what I want to talk to you about and where we're thinking differently. I think right now there's been sort of, especially with the racial justice movements of this past summer, there's been an awareness that institutions have come to. Students have been pushing this for a while. I think faculty of color and our allies have been pushing this for a while, but the university is being held to account on the statements that they are making, right? That's great that you can make a statement, but how are you doing the work? How are you creating spaces of inclusion? How are you creating spaces of equity? How are you, reflecting on your own reputation of harm? And so that's one of the things that Campus Compact has been working on, particularly through our civic action plans. In 2016, during our 30th year anniversary, our board put forth these civic action statements that were recommitting member institutions to the ideas of the public purpose of higher education, what our role is in educating students for diverse democracy, and also the responsibility that we had both internally and with our community partners to really engage in meaningful reciprocal relationships. And as part of that kind of evolution of our civic action plans, we've had over 100 institutions participate and submit civic action plans, but we began asking member institutions to think about their own reputation of harm, right? What are those relationships? What would the community say? And we saw a number of institutions doing this, right? Georgetown, in its recognition of its participation in the slave trade and the push, particularly of students, right, around reparations and acknowledgement of that. We saw places like Brown and other institutions beginning this process of owning those particular reputations of harm, that particular history with the community as a way towards moving towards reconciliation. We think that's a really important piece of what this kind of transformative relationship can look like. The other piece that we've seen is a deep interest in the work around anti-racism. And what does that mean within the context of community engagement? Some of the things that we have done and where we have seen kind of a lot of movement is we just finished our first anti-racism community of practice, where we brought together a diverse group, about 40 individuals. Half the group was white, half the group were BIPOC individuals, to really engage in these conversations about what does race and racism look like on campus, what are opportunities, activities, conversations, dialogues that need to happen around anti-racism, and how does that impact what we do personally, right? What am I doing as an individual to move towards anti-racism, doing my own reflection and my own work, but then what am I willing to do as part of a collective and also within my institutions to begin to move these conversations forward. So we had that. We also had, and we're going on to our second cohort of our Engaged Scholars Initiative. And so that is a program that's geared towards early career faculty and community engagement professionals, really deeply focused on issues of equity and inclusion, as well as community engaged leadership. And so our hope is that that program will help develop leaders in our institutions in the future to begin to continue this work that we need. And within those spaces, one of the most poignant pieces that has come out of it has been the ways in which our institutions have, in many ways, been toxic to the individuals that are working there, right? And so to engage in this radical imagination also means acknowledging, right, the toxic nature that we have in higher ed sometimes, the individualism, the competitiveness, but then thinking about what could be different. And where can community engagement be situated, right, within the institution to move forward a different kind of university, a different kind of college. So that's where the idea of the third university is possible. One that focuses on love, right? And so for Campus Compact, the framing of our equity work is around love, living out our value of equity. So how do we live that out? Part of it is, as an institution, how do you begin to recognize and identify the obstacles or the barriers to full participation, right? For your students, for your community partners, for your faculty and staff. And then how do you work towards addressing or eliminating those barriers so that all can participate fully in the institution, in the community, so that we can move towards thriving, right, as the goal, not just surviving. One of the things that the pandemic has showed us is really this idea of, sunshine being the best disinfectant, was the depth of inequities that folks experience. And I know you all are in Marin County, and as an institution where you're situated, probably saw a lot of that with your community partners who were essential workers, right? Who had to go in, whose kids were left alone, or had to figure out schooling, access to the internet, who was getting sick, right? And so with this kind of realization, or the sort of the sheet being taken off, what was your responsibility as an institution? Was it to sit back? Was it to wait? Was it to just operate from home? Or was it to figure out what were the possibilities? Where did imagination come in? Where did problem solving come in? Where did mutual aid come in? And so what we're seeing nationally is that many institutions had to work with risk management to figure out what was possible and what was not. Many institutions have had to push the boundaries of their own knowledge and understanding to see what was possible and to create new possibilities. And many institutions also had to think deeply about which community partnerships they kept, right? Where were the areas of most need? And then which ones did they have to sort of put on the side or do differently? And I think that as an organization that looks towards, thinking about this work differently, as an organization that tries to help move the field in a forward direction, that is deeply focused now on issues of equity and inclusion, I think we're at the cusp of what this field will be. I think Dominican early on, Julia and others participated in some of our webinars, and we're asking these deep questions and challenging. And I think you all took on this challenge in this moment of really being responsive to the community that needed the most support. And that's how we move towards deeper imagination, radical imagination. That is how we move towards creating possibilities that are not just for the moment of COVID, but have to become deeply rooted in the way our institutions participate and engage with our local community. So I commend the work that you did in this time of stress, but it's often those times of stress that allow us the space and freedom to think radically, to think differently, and to engage in ways that we would have never thought of had we not been put in this situation. And that is part of resilience. And the communities that you're working with are deeply resilient and will move you to be a more resilient and responsive institution. So thank you so much for the invitation. I'm happy to answer questions offline. I will throw my email in the chat, and hopefully I get to come back and we can engage more in this kind of conversation. Thank you so much, Julia and everyone.
Thank you, Marisol. I think you've just whet our appetites. I already sent you a message saying we need to have you back, as this will be a fantastic conversation to deepen and continue with you. So if you're willing, we would love to have you back. But we also want to hear some of the voices of our students and community partners. So Abby Gold is our MC.
Hi, so my name's Abby Gold. Thank you, Marisol, for coming and speaking with us today. I am today's moderator, and I'll give you a little background on myself. I am a junior at Dominican. I'm also on the women's soccer team, and I am a student fellow with the Reading Buddies. So I've been involved in the service learning program for a long time, and I love every minute of it. And now I'm going to pass it off to our first presenter, Carla Sidonia from Digital Literacy Support.
Hello everyone, my name is Carla Salazar. It's my first year at Dominican. I am majoring in nursing and minoring in Spanish. The SL course that I took was effective communication. One experience I can recall from working with digital literacy was actually with the first parent that I got to work with. She had already been working with another student previously, and so when I met with her for the first time, I could tell that she was really nervous and shy, and I remember hearing a lot of background noise, and there were children running around, and it was sort of getting in the way of our meeting. And so I began to worry that this was going to lead to her, giving up or not being as engaged in our meeting. And I was surprised to see that instead of giving up, she did her best considering the circumstances she was under. And in this situation, I had to learn how to become more aware and attentive to her environment and her conditions so that I could adapt and better serve her in the best way that I could. And I didn't know a lot about her personal life, but I knew she was a mom, and she, the responsibility of having to take care of her children and working a job and still coming into the meeting after a long day and having the motivation and drive to learn something that was going to benefit not only her children, but her. It was really amazing to see that. Fortunately, I grew up with the access to technology and the resources to become digitally literate from a young age, which was something that was not possible for her until she joined the program. So it helped me recognize how important it is to provide the Latinx community, as well as other communities, with the resources and support they need to thrive in this digital world we're in right now. And like I said, it's not uncommon to experience internet and audio issues, as the work we do is online. So it sort of forced me to come up with situations or alternatives on the spot to work around these situations that come up. But it's been great working with students and other students and mentor, because that way we have a network of support. We can rely on each other when things come up. Sometimes I won't know the answer to a question that a parent asks, so I'll call on one of my peers, and it's great having that support because it's helped me learn from them, the students, but it's also helped me to better serve the parents that I work with. Yeah, and it's also taught me to become more comfortable and more open so that I could respond to these different situations. And it was something that I wasn't comfortable with at the start, but as my experiences have grown and I've had more time to become comfortable, it's been overall a great learning experience and really fun.
Thank you, Carla. Next up, we have Maya Mohsin from Canal Alliance Adult ESL.
Hi everyone, my name is Maya. I am going into my senior year here at Dominican. I double major in dance and social justice, and this semester I took CASC 3405. And so this semester I did some research on the assets and cultural community wealth of the Latino community. And as I began to sort of collect these assets that I've been noticing after volunteering for the past few years with this community, I interviewed Melissa Potts, the senior manager of the adult ESL program. And as I presented to her these assets that I had found myself, one of the first things that she said to me was that she introduces the community as vibrant. And when she said that, I thought, yes, absolutely. If you've met this or you've interacted with this community, they're incredibly vibrant and lively and all of the things. And so I wanted to share just a little story from when from some of the research I did this semester. So I interviewed one of the clients at Canal Alliance, one of the students with the ESL program, and I had not met her before this interview, but she was incredibly kind, and I don't know how we got to talking about this, but she was telling me about sort of her plans for the next few years, and she said, so I want to continue studying English for a few more years, and then I want to attend Berkeley University. And when I see you there, I'll say, hey, Maya. And it was just a really kind moment because I had not met her before this, and she was already so familiar and welcoming with me. And I have no plans of attending Berkeley in the near future, but I am considering it just to see her there. In hopes of seeing her. So, you know, after doing so much research, focusing on, or in the class that I took, we talked a lot about what can happen with damage-centered research. And that is not to say that there are not issues within each marginalized community, but I wanted to highlight a little bit more of the positive aspects that the community has cultivated and carried themselves this semester, and is most likely what I will keep looking into for my capstone in the fall. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Maya. Our next speaker is Selena Ornelas from Canal Alliance Up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Selena Ornelas. I am a first-year student at Dominican. I'm also a music and political science major with a minor in pre-law. This semester, I obtained the opportunity to work with Canal Alliance University Prep Program through my service learning class, Social Justice and Ethical Action, taught by Julia Vanderine. The students I was paired with within the program had similar backgrounds to that of mine, and because of that, we were really able to bond over shared experiences and similar cultures. And throughout the entirety of my time collaborating with the students, we shared an overwhelming amount of memorable moments and just overall fun times, I would say. But I just really want to highlight a specific memory that I will always remember. So after helping one of my middle school students with their English homework, we had a conversation over the difficulties of speaking our native tongue in public. And this was just a really meaningful conversation, and it was so powerful because it was not censored by the white spaces that oftentimes hover over subjugated voices and obtain the capacity to make them uncomfortable and uncomfortable enough to not even speak your truth, which censoring subjugated voices is so important. So I was honored that they would even trust me with that information. And so through this conversation and ongoing conversations and the coursework that I've been able to indulge within social justice and ethical action, I've been able to evolve and grow into a better lifelong learner. And prior to this course and serving this community, I was under the misconception that because I come from an immigrant family and I obtain a subjugated voice, that I understand all immigrant and subjugated voices. But through the work that I've been able to be a part of and the coursework that I've been able to partake in, I realize now that in order to be a lifelong learner, you have to be committed to learning other perspectives and stories, regardless of your identity. In order to be an ethical being, you have to be a lifelong learner. And in order to be a lifelong learner, you have to center subjugated voices, regardless of who you are or what you know. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Selena. Next up, we have from 10,000 Degrees, Judy, Kramer, and Tiffany Chu.
Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be here. For those of you that don't know, 10,000 Degrees is a college success program for low-income students, almost all of whom will be first in their family to graduate college. And by definition, most of them are BIPOC. I manage the academic support program, which in non-pandemic years has about 200 volunteers deployed across 32 Title I schools in Marin County, tutoring students in classrooms. Starting a year ago, we weren't able to do that. And so in part of our pivot to online tutoring, we were talking to Emily and Julia and came up with the idea that I would partner with Professor Cindy Taylor and her Evolution of Human Cultures class. Selfishly, it enabled me to keep some seasoned volunteers engaged. And as a result, my volunteers and I learned how we can better incorporate the concepts of cultural humility and allyship into our training and our program. And what we did was the volunteers and I co-learned with the students. We did almost all of the coursework. We did not have to turn in the assignments, which was lucky for us. And then every Wednesday this spring, we met in small groups with students to talk about what we'd learned that week. So which really helped reinforce the learning, we really tried hard to provoke some critical thinking and talk about how what we'd learned related to current events that we might have experienced in our own lifetimes or not. So one of the outstanding students in my group was Tiffany Chu, and I'm delighted she can join us today to tell you about her experience.
Thank you, Judy. Hi, everyone. My name's Tiffany Chu, and I'm a graduating senior that's majoring in global public health. And today I'll be sharing my experiences in the service learning class I took called The Evolution of Human Cultures with Dr. Taylor. As a global public health student, I was not unfamiliar with the concept of social issues. Throughout my education at Dominican, we constantly looked at health outcomes and how they were linked with social economic status. Unsurprisingly, the population suffering from chronic diseases such as cardiovascular disease or metabolic syndromes were minorities from poorer neighborhoods. This class helped me gain some insight into why that is by looking at systemic racism and questioning these policies. This class also made me reflect on my personal experiences. Yes, technically I'm a person of color. However, I realized how much I also benefit from white privilege as a Chinese American. I felt uncomfortable while exploring themes on social injustices. This class taught me that I should strive to learn how to deal with these feelings and to continue to pursue the journey that is cultural humility. I'm currently looking to start my career in public health, and this class has made me want to help the underserved communities reach better health outcomes. I believe that my role is to continue to have all these conversations with people of all different backgrounds to try and bring these issues onto the radar for more people and to actively become a better ally. As we know, the pandemic affected our classroom experiences within the last year. I think that my experience this year with the service learning community engagement was actually extremely beneficial. I met with my partner Judy at 10,000 Degrees and discussed the literature we were assigned weekly about cultural wealth and communities, cultural humility, as well as what culture means to each of us. Seeing how eager many of us are to become better allies, to learn more about other people's cultures, and to try and understand the lens they view the world gives me hope. With each generation, more and more of us will practice engaging in our communities with an open mind and an open heart. To finish up, I'd like to share a quote with you all today. Robert Allen, an American writer and social activist, stated, "Cultural differences should not separate us from each other, but rather cultural diversity brings a collective strength that can benefit all of humanity." Thank you.
Thank you so much, Judy and Tiffany. We are running a little bit behind, so I hope everyone can stay a few minutes after. Next up, we have from Leandro Juntos, Jeremy Johnson, and Alyssa Salazar.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jeremy Johnson. I teach service learning effective communication classes at Dominican, and I'm also the coordinator for the Leyendo Juntos program, which is a partnership between Dominican University and San Pedro Elementary School that we started last semester. We get together with kindergarten to third grade students twice a week, and we read to them. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a sense of what that looks like. So that's Leyendo Juntos. And I'm going to pass it over to Alyssa Salazar, who is one of our students and volunteers in the class this semester. Go ahead, Alyssa.
Thank you, Jeremy. Hi, everyone. My name is Alyssa Salazar. I'm a sophomore business major concentrating in marketing with a minor in sports management, and I'm also on the women's golf team. Like Jeremy said, the community partner we worked with was Leyendo Juntos, and we meet every Tuesday and Thursday from 5 to 6. And our main goal is to help these children improve their reading skills and love it at the same time. So some of the key challenges that I noticed the students face is lack of a quiet workspace when they're at home. And they usually have their brothers or sisters, family members around them at all times. And every now and then we get like a couple family members jump in and help us read. And I think that is so awesome. Another one of the troubles that we've faced was Wi-Fi trouble or just technology trouble in general. And sometimes a language barrier. I don't know if anyone in here has been to Leyendo Juntos with us, but sometimes the students speak little to no English at all, or maybe they're fluent, and sometimes the parents speak little to no English at all as well. So I speak Spanish, and so most of the time I'm in the main room and translating for the students and families to help them get to their breakout rooms. But regardless of the challenges that these students face, they still continue to show up and participate. At the beginning of the semester, we were in one large breakout room and one of the Dominican students led the warm up. And then we split into smaller breakout rooms and read to the students. Towards the middle of the semester, I think there was a Zoom update, so we became a little more tech savvy, and that the DU students were all made co-hosts, and then we invited the students to our breakout rooms individually, and then we also read to them. So I think that really improved the students' confidence and ability to read. They know how to read, but with a smaller group of people, more of a 1-to-1 or 5-to-1 ratio of DU students to San Pedro Elementary students was smaller. And I think they got more comfortable with reading, and watching them improve was, in such a short amount of time, was truly, truly amazing. And as you can tell in the video, the students love to read. They love to participate. We play games with them. And I think that really let us connect on a personal level with the students. And there's so many things to learn from these children, but if I had to pick one, it would be their work ethic. These students want to succeed on their own. They come to Leyendo Juntos with great attitudes, and they're always ready to read. I mean, regardless of what kind of day they had, they're willing to put in that extra effort for an hour on Tuesdays and Thursdays to read with us. And there are two students in particular that are always volunteer to read, which means that they have enough confidence to read out loud with us and to their classmates. And I think that's a pretty big step for a kindergarten through third grader. Like I said, in the beginning, I was the one reading, but towards the end of Leyendo Juntos, I think the children read about 95% of the time. And I'm so glad that we've been able to watch them improve this much in such a short amount of time.
Thank you both so much. That was a wonderful video. Next up from Reading Buddies, we have Professor Thomas Burke, Ramona Little-Taylor, and Jeneline Valeta.
Thank you, Abby. So I am delighted to be here and delighted to introduce our very generous and innovative community partner. Ramona Little-Taylor is now the Deputy Director of County Library Services in Marin County. And when we began our partnership, Ramona Little-Taylor was the branch manager at Point Reyes. So I'm delighted to turn things over to Ramona Little-Taylor. Thanks.
Thanks, Professor Burke. At Marin County Free Library, we want every child to reach their full potential. Yet in Marin, thousands of children still face barriers to early childhood education, literacy development, and high school graduation. We believe that all those children can reach their potential regardless of race, ethnicity, or income. And so building on children and family strengths and resilience, the library's education equity initiatives aim to close these gaps as a member of the Marin Promise Partnership and expand opportunities for low-income students and students of color, and address the persistent and systemic inequities in education. So with that, we provide The Reading Buddies program is one of our strategies to support grade level reading in 3 regions. There's West Marin, Marin City, and South Novato. We chose these areas of the county because the data shows that these are the greatest education disparities in Marin. And of course, we also acknowledge and recognize that San Rafael is part of that group, but we don't actually have a physical library in San Rafael because San Rafael Public is a different library system. So they're one of our partners. All of these communities are impacted by a long history of systemic and institutional racism in housing policies, segregation, redlining, education, and health disparities. We primarily serve Black, Latinx, English language learners, and immigrant communities. So our Reading Buddies program provides one-on-one tutoring that helps build a love and daily practice of reading. The students read with their buddy for about 20 minutes. And why 20 minutes? It's because the research shows that if a child reads 20 minutes a day, this nurtures their vocabulary development, improves social emotional skills, and literacy skills, which are essential to school success. We started the partnership with Dominican and Professor Burke in 2019, and some of the greatest impacts we've seen is the value of a near-peer mentorship from the Dominican students. The little buddies develop strong positive relationships with the Dominican students. They start to look up to them and see themselves as learners who might one day become a Dominican penguin and attend college. Some of our students have experienced trauma in their lives or they aren't confident readers. This year, our school partners and parents have reported seeing reading gains in the children who participate in our program, and our staff see children opening up, expressing themselves as confident learners and enjoying reading. What did we learn this year? We weren't sure how the program was going to transition to the virtual sphere, but what we found is that we were able to increase access using an equity lens to support students living remotely in West Marin. Historically, West Marin is frequently left behind in major initiatives due to transportation challenges, it's a long drive, and being one of the most remote areas of the county. In previous years, we were only able to serve children who could walk or get transportation to the Point Reyes Library. Due to the virtual platform, we were able to serve students across a 40-mile radius from Tamales and Bodega Bay all the way to Bolinas and Stinson Beach. This is huge. We plan to adopt a hybrid model for our program as we move forward and things open up because we see the impact and the ability to serve more students who are often left behind in most major initiatives that happen in the county. Few stats to close us out is in West Marin, we accomplished with the students 9,990 minutes of reading this year. We read a total of 325 books, and we had 333 individual sessions of reading buddies. And I will turn over to Jenny Lynn, who is one of our long-term reading buddies students.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jenilyn Valete, and I'm a freshman honors nursing student at Dominican. For both my fall and spring semesters, I was in a service learning class, Effective Communication 1, and now Creative Writing taught by Professor Burke, which allowed me to work with my community partner. I got the amazing opportunity to work with the Reading Buddies program, in which I worked with children around the West Marin area. The program consisted of meeting with children once or twice a week with 30-minute sessions each child, and I dedicated 2 hours to the program weekly, in which I was able to meet with different students from different grade levels. At first, I was a bit scared to work with my younger students just because I never really got to work with young students before. However, there was nothing to be scared of at all because I knew my library coordinator was happy to help me if I struggled with anything, which was always reassuring. One funny story was I actually had to do my first session in front of my own library coordinator because we were having Zoom difficulties and I could not be placed in my own breakout room. And to say the least, the experience was intimidating, but also reassuring as well, as my coordinator was able to give me feedback, which only made me a stronger tutor. So through the program, I have been able to help fulfill their main goal, which is to help lessen the education equity gap between children of color and white students in Marin, as well as to help strengthen their love for reading. And I know school funding can make it difficult for children to get the help that they need, and some parents may not have the time or tools to help their children education-wise. So it is great that the Reading Buddy program is geared towards helping those children who are falling behind or who just need individual attention. I really enjoyed this experience as not only was I able to help students with reading, but I was also able to make connections with my own students. One student in particular is an Asian American student, just like me, and she was super shy at first, and for the first few weeks, we strictly read. But after a while, she got comfortable with me, and we were able to talk about her life, which was super rewarding. I felt honored that she felt comfortable enough to share things with me, such as like her art projects, how her day was, and even her beloved pets. One thing that she shared with me that kind of stuck with me was that she was a child of immigrants, meaning she would be a first-generation college student if she chose to go that route. And this strengthened our relationship as I'm also a first-generation person of color, and I felt like I was able to serve as a role model to her and was an example that she could do anything that she puts her mind to. Working with her for 2 semesters in a row was so rewarding as I got to see her progress each week. She would always choose a more difficult book each week, and she surprised me every session. She was resilient and always tackled big words with no hesitation, which was inspiring to see as she was so confident. It was an honor to see her grow, and I can only hope the best for her future. Not only have I been able to serve as a tutor, but also as a friend, and overall this experience has been one to remember and one that I will always value. Thank you guys so much for your time.
Thank you all from Reading Buddies. Next up, we have Jessica Ramirez from Bayside Martin Luther King Jr. Academy.
Hello, as mentioned, my name is Jessica Ramirez. I'm a second year here at Dominican University of California, and I'm pursuing an education major. For the service learning class that I took this spring was Art Fundamentals, in which we were partners with Bayside Martin Luther King Jr. Academy. And within the school, we were partnered with a group of students, and we worked on art projects together and collaborated on how we can do these amazing drawings. And so I was partnered with a girl, and she at first was really shy and not really confident in her artwork. She was also new to the school, so she needed help with translation to her primary language, which is Spanish, and I was lucky enough to be partnered with her. At first, she was really shy, and it was really hard to communicate with her because she was new to technology as well. I could see that classmates would help her where to click and where to go, and I had to explain to her, okay, so this is Zoom, this is what happens. First, we're gonna go in groups, and then we're gonna come back together, and she didn't really know what was going on. But after meeting a lot of times towards the middle, she started gaining my trust and started creating a relationship with her. And I remember one time we were doing a self-portrait project, and we were both laughing at how funny we looked during the process of drawing each other. And we were sharing each other's drawings, and then she's like, I don't think I'm really good at this. And I'm like, don't worry, I'm not either. And I would show her mine, and then I would tell her that we just have to trust the process, that towards the end we're going to see a final product. And then when we did, she was like, oh, this actually looks good. And so she really inspired me, although it was something small, that we should be confident in our artwork and find the joy in the process of using our imagination to re-image what is possible. And it was really great being with the students, and it was also really lightening to be with them because during this pandemic we didn't get to collaborate with them in person, but just doing it through Zoom, it was really fun hearing their comments and seeing them draw. And I would also like to thank Professor Lynn for letting me speak upon this service learning class. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Our next speaker is Amanda Rigosa from the Hannah Project Partnership.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Rigosa. I'm a sophomore pre-occupational therapy major, and I'm double minoring in CASC and psychology. And this semester, I was able to take CASC 3405 and Honors 3206 while serving with Betty Hodges at the Hannah Project as their newsletter writer. And through my work with the Hannah Project and through class material, I've learned how segregation in the school setting has caused profound consequences for students of color. And I learned about this issue specifically in regards to the Sausalito Marin City School District. And one thing that I learned through the interviews I conducted with individuals from Marin City is that with school segregation, Black youth have been deprived of the equal opportunities and resources to do well in high school and even pursue higher education. And during an interview that I had with a Bayside MLK alumni, she had recalled her own experiences attending the school when the district had initially segregated and how they didn't have textbooks, technology, or even a lunchroom at the time when she was there. And in addition to this, I learned that marginalized youth, they face a lowered self-esteem when attending majority white schools. So when talking with a Willow Creek alumni, on the other hand, she discussed her own experiences attending the school as one of few Black students there at the time. And she explained how during her 8th grade year, a white student had called her the N-word, and this white student wasn't going to be allowed on their class trip because of what he had said to her. But on the day of the trip, he was there with his bag. So she went to the principal and she asked why, and was told that because his parents had funded most of the trip, that she didn't have a choice. So this story that she told, it only exemplifies the ways in which students of color, they're commonly silenced out by these dominant oppressors. And I learned that racial segregation in the school setting, it leads to staff and students acting as aggressors and these bystanders due to a lack of diversity, which ultimately impacts Black students and their self-esteem. So while individuals in Marin City are faced with these challenges, I've learned through my research that through class material that these communities are also full of these assets that allow them to thrive. For example, there's this close-knit culture and supportive nature in Marin City that's been passed down for generations. And when talking with my community partner supervisor, Betty Hodges, about her work with her organization, she explained how we believe in everyone's potential and we see everyone as family. So these organizations, they value this close-knit culture in Marin City and are able to serve as not only a support system, but they're also able to serve as a strategy towards higher education for these underserved youth through the resources that they provide, like scholarships and summer jobs and information on how to go to college. So overall, I've learned that these nonprofit CBOs and the tight-knit culture in Marin City are able to serve as assets as they provide community members with the encouragement as well as the support to achieve success. And through my classes and through conducting interviews with community members, I've learned the importance of listening as a tool for allyship and how the ability for community members to share these stories, it serves as an asset in itself as it allows others to hear their true lived experiences.
Thank you so much, Amanda. And our final speaker from Health Hubs is Carla Dizon.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carmela, and I'm a junior majoring in biology and minoring in chemistry. This is actually my first time taking a service learning course, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But I'm a firm believer in saying you get out of life what you put into it. And I purposely chose a community partner that would push me out of my comfort zone and physically be present because I wanted to see firsthand the challenges in the community, what the challenges the community faces because I am new to this area. Partnering up with Health Hubs of Marin Community Clinics, an outreach organization that helps that provides an array of services from distributing healthy foods, providing health screening, which at this time they're not doing because of the pandemic, and educating the community about the different local organizations and assistance program, which one of the assistance program we advertised to the clients of Health Hubs was the Marin County Rental Assistance Program, a program that can help our clients with rent and utilities during these unprecedented times. But what we uncovered was that the county's website still had English web pages that were not translated in Spanish. This is like a huge impediment to continue the process of the application if the client cannot further continue because of the language barrier, which further just solidifies the need to culturally sensitize government websites to cater to most, if not all, citizens. Discovering the issue led to one of Health Hub's outreach event in the Canal area to survey households to find out their rental status and if they were aware of the county's rental assistance program. Rosa and I partnered up and spoke to 13 households, and 3 of them stood out the most. One family owes over $5,000 in back rent. Another family borrowed money from other family members to pay rent, and another family took a bank loan to pay for rent. This pandemic is this event just put this pandemic in perspective for me. These family continues to exhibit resiliency through these hardships in life. They aren't preventing themselves from receiving the help they need. And the presence of organizations like Health Hubs is like a beacon of hope for those who seek services but not sure how to access these benefits. And they've truly earned the trust of the communities they serve. And thank you for the time and opportunity for me to speak today.
Thank you so much, Carmela. And thank you to all of our speakers. I'm going to pass it on to Julia.
We did it on time. I can't believe it. Thank you, everybody. I mean, I just feel so inspired by all of you. We will be doing it again.